Hello and welcome to episode 37 of The Magnetic Life. I'm here today with the beautiful, vibrant, and zesty Michelle Poehler. She's a creative and passionate social entrepreneur, keynote speaker, fear facer, branding strategist, and author of the Hello Fears book and now journal. Born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, to a family of Holocaust survivors, Michelle was accustomed to living with fear. But when she moved to New York to pursue a master's in branding at the School of Visual Arts, Michelle quickly realized that NYC was not for the fearful. In efforts to rewrite her definition of fear, Michelle completed a project where she faced 100 fears in 100 days. At around day 40, the project was discovered by the media, becoming a worldwide viral phenomenon. Facing her fears took Michelle to TEDx's stage where she completed her 100th challenge, turning a personal project into a global movement and allowing her to quit her job as art director in Y&R to pursue her passion. She is the founder of Hello Fears, a social movement empowering millions to step outside of their comfort zone and tap into their full potential. She has spoken at Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, ESPN, Netflix, and amazing, wonderful companies. In 2017, she started speaking to the younger generation, and since then has empowered over 100,000 students at schools and universities around the world to live with courage, find their authenticity, and embrace their paths. And of course, I have to mention her amazing husband, Adam, and her beautiful baby boy, Noah, who's one of Koa's international besties. The three of them love to travel all over the world from event to event, eating delicious food and soaking in the world. Welcome, Michelle.
Yay! Thank you for having me. Finally, right?
Yeah, I know. This is such a cool, testament to when you have a vibe and a friendship with someone and it takes a while. Just trust that the paths are meant to cross whenever they do.
Exactly. I'm glad we're meeting like face to face through internet for the first time here in your podcast. What a better
Yeah.
way to do this. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. And Michelle, I have to tell you, Blake told me about you. So Blake and Michelle met through the speaking world. And he said to me, Emily, I met a speaker friend that I think would actually be your friend too. And he goes, what made me think you guys would be really close friends was watching the way she responded to music. So you guys were at a retreat and he saw you jump on the dance floor and he's like, oh yeah, that's my wife too. Um, so he said, I just got an image of you guys traveling across the world and, finding cool, vibey music. So that has yet to happen. But
Oh yeah.
Blake is the master of seeing visions before they happen. So I was like, okay, Blake, I'm in. Introduce me to this friend.
Oh my God. That's so funny. And you say that about him, and I think the same way. Like I have visions and then they turn into a reality. For example, when I was in Puerto Vallarta in 2020 at the beginning before the pandemic and all of that, I told Blake, you have to let me know when you get pregnant so we can do it at the same time. We ended up having the baby 1 month apart.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I'm
Whoa.
like, you have to tell me. And then we never talked about this. And then suddenly that happened. So he's like, Michelle, it's what you said. It's happening. We're going to be pregnant at the same time.
Okay, so you and Blake have these like totally open third eye chakras.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And the resonance is just uncanny. We have Koa and Noah, which sounds like a band.
So funny because we never said the name. Did you ever share the name before he was born? No,
No,
we either. Like we
no.
never share the name with. It's part of our religion actually. In Judaism,
Oh,
you're not allowed to share the name until the seventh day the baby's born. So
what?
yeah, even after the baby's born, you can't even say it on the first day. So only
Wow.
doctors like knew the name because they were putting it in the boards and everything, like everywhere in the hospital. But other than that, not even our parents knew the name until the seventh day
Whoa.
when we do the ceremony, the bris, where we do the circumcision. This is only for boys. and then you announce the name, because in Judaism the baby is not Jewish until that day, until that happens, that ritual. After that happens, he's like allowed to have a name and be part of the community.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for teaching me that. I love learning about, different cultures and traditions like that. That's really cool. And I mean, it's fun for other people to have a surprise too, to kind of
Yeah.
see the little face and the name reveal. So yeah, I can
Yeah.
appreciate that side of it too. Um, and the other thing that totally drew me to you, Michelle, I have spent so much of my life with crazy wild amount of fears. And I think back and I'm like, if I had better systems and ways of working with my fears, how would my life be different? Because my life is great, let's face it. But would I have achieved more magic, more joy early on if I knew how to overcome my fears? So the big ones that jump out at me for my fears, mice. I had driving on a highway was a fear as a teenager. When I was a little kid, I was really fearful of socializing. I've had some fears of money in my past. So, anyways, I could rhyme off a ton from different stages of my life. So, let me ask you, have you always had a lot of fears across your lifespan?
Oh my gosh, so many. And just because we're having this conversation, I remember a fear that we both shared during our pregnancies, and it was having a boy. Like we both
So true.
somehow were convinced we were having girls,
So
or were like keen to having girls. And then suddenly when both of us find out we're having both, it was like not the typical gender
so true.
reveal that we're used to seeing, right? Like we're so used to seeing this big gender reveals with whatever the gender they reveal or the sex, everybody gets super happy. And I think both of us were like, maybe.
You know what? This is the line that came across for me. I'm so terrified. I don't know how to be a good boy mom over and over, right? Because it's like conditioning. I'm so feminine. I love fashion. I love whatever. And I think the fear was like, I don't know if I know how to do this. And what if the baby rejects me because I'm not an all-star baseball player? How did it
Right.
kind of feel for you in your belly?
Oh my gosh, it was a little bit crazy. Like I didn't want a reveal at all. Like I just asked Adam to do it very intimate, because I didn't know how I was going to react, and I actually wanted that to be an intimate moment, just the two of us, like no
Mhm,
family or anything. And so when I found out, it was crazy because I felt like a disconnection with my
mhm,
pregnancy. I was like so connected by that point. Like I was so
mhm.
happy and excited. And suddenly I felt a disconnection. And I
Yeah.
had a huge realization. Like for me, this was huge in my life. Like what happened next. And it was thanks to Adam's sister. I remember like I was crying that whole night. I couldn't stop crying. I thought
Mhm,
about all different things. Like I really wanted my girl to be like my best friend. I picture both of us like doing girl things and just being so attached to each other in that way. And like girls are more, they stay with their parents more, like they're more loving and more all of these things. And I'm like, now I don't know if I'll ever have a girl. Like that thought was like heartbreaking. Also, I was really excited to, because I have this story of fear and not being a very like brave girl growing up, and quite the opposite. I would always hide behind the fact that I'm a girl to say that I have fears and don't care about it. I'm like, girls
Oh,
are supposed to have fears. Like, I'm fine. I don't need to fight. And I would always think, thank God I'm not a boy, because boys are supposed to be brave and I'm not brave. So I would be
wow.
the worst boy in the world because I have all the fears. And I just, I don't have a problem saying, I'm afraid of that, so I won't do it. I never had a problem with just being open about my fears. And people
Mhm,
accepted it. They're like, oh, Michelle, she's this little girl that we have to take care of. And I'm like, yes, please take care of me. So I lived in my comfort zone forever until I was like 26, that I decided to face all of my fears living in New York City, and I became this brave, not fearless, but brave woman that I never
mm,
in my life thought that I could be. And so I was so excited to raise a brave girl that when I found out
wow.
it was a boy, I'm like, now what? Like, what's the purpose? Like I was like so disappointed. And then, like I was saying, it was my sister-in-law. And she told me, like, at 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep that night. I was so frustrated. And then that night, my sister-in-law texted me, and she was like, I can't believe that you're acting like this, because of course we told the family, and they could see that I couldn't stop crying. And then she's like, just because you realize that you're having a boy, because you're always talking about like gender neutral and things not having to do with gender, and you're doing quite the opposite of what
Mm-hmm.
you are preaching and what you're saying. You
Mm-hmm.
are labeling this person that you don't even know. What if he likes art? What if he likes your kind of music? What if he likes pink? What if he, then what? Like, you're putting him in a box. That's so unfair.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know him. And I
Yes.
was like, oh, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And then
uh,
I started picturing other ways that we can bond that are not going to the hair salon or doing our mani pedis. Who knows? Maybe, but like other ways, like, yeah, appreciating art or dancing together or doing all kinds of things. And it's exactly what I'm experiencing right now with Noah. He loves
oh,
my kind of music. It's so funny. Like, he loves so many things that I love, like sushi and all these little things that I love. And I'm like,
oh.
oh, that's so nice.
Okay, so Michelle, you're raising a really good point here when it comes to the topic of fear. Usually below a fear is an extremely limiting belief that we haven't had a chance to kind of like pull back the veil and look at the mirror and say, what is true here, right? So the identification with boy versus girl pregnancy means there's some sort of fixation on something that isn't true. Like, girls only do this, boys only do this. To be a good mom, you have to, love exactly what each other loves. So as we start to like strip away these limiting beliefs, the fear is like, okay, there's not as much here as I thought. I was giving it so much charge. And sometimes we need these coaches and friends and family members to challenge us and say, hey, I think there's a limiting belief here. And then we can start to see it all kind of dissolve.
Yes, exactly. And like one other like realization in that way, and like limiting belief that I was having, is that I was rooting for equality in like quotation marks. And
Mm-hmm.
why do I say in quotation marks? Because I was always rooting for like female power, right? Because I was like, no, I want equality. But then when I'm having a boy, I'm rejecting it. Is that equality, or is that like feminazi, like quite the opposite? It's just rooting for girls,
Yeah.
not for equal. And that's another like big realization. I'm like, wow, I've been rooting only for girls, and that's not fair with humanity.
Yeah.
Not even with girls is fair, and so, and then I remember that we talked about, let's raise boys that are kind boys, that are good
Mm.
boys, that know how to respect women, and the world needs that more than anything. So I think we're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you for being so open and vulnerable, Michelle. That's really, really beautiful because, sometimes it can be like shameful or embarrassing to really own up to these limiting beliefs we have. Or like, oh, am I going to be judged for what I think? But when we just kind of share with the world and get vulnerable, it's like we all have these beliefs in one way or another. What makes a good wife? What makes a good mother? What makes a good professional, right? And even okay, I think you shared this too, so you have to catch me if I'm wrong. Did you also share you have some driving fears at times?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I really like every time, there's and I've been thinking about that even that this week. Like the other day, for example, this week, Adam is not in Miami where we live. He's in Mexico at a convention. And so I'm by myself, and my best friend, she wants to become a speaker, and she was doing her first speaking like to the public right here in Miami. And she texted me on Tuesday, and she's like, Michelle, are you coming to the event? I completely forgot about that. And just when I thought about the fact that I need to drive at night by myself, and it was going to rain, it's like a 20-minute drive to the event, I started getting stomach aches, and my head was trying to find all the different excuses to tell her I can't go.
Yeah.
But it's my best friend, and she was having, her first speaking engagement, and she wanted me there, and how can I not go? So I have to admit, this story doesn't end like you're hoping. I didn't drive. Called
Totally.
my sister-in-law, and I'm like, are you going to the event? And she was going. And she picked me up. But just to say that I am like
No, I
driving
love
on my
that.
fears. Yeah.
I
So
love
thank
that.
God for Uber. I
Okay.
say Uber a lot.
And this is so good, right? Because I love that you're saying just because we get on a podcast and stuff doesn't mean we are at the quote unquote end goal. We need to talk more in life as we're like going through stuff and feeling it and be super real because fears isn't necessarily, like you said, fearless. It's just how do we live in the current of being brave and being solution focused. And straight up, Michelle, I'm the same way. Like I can drive easily around my hometown and whatever. But it's like when the snow and the rain comes and it's like I gotta go downtown Toronto, frig, I'm like panicking. So, and it depends how spiritual, historical people are. But me over here, I love the more spiritual realm. I feel like some of these fears were inherited from our ancestors, and there's a reason. And we actually don't have to judge them. We can just sit with them and observe them. So, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. You're a super amazing woman. And it just shows that no matter how powerful and amazing we are, we're all human. We're not robots.
Yeah, and we're like so different from each other that you can't judge somebody's fears,
Nope.
which is hard. Like if somebody tells you, I can't go in the elevator. I have a friend that she's like, no, I can't go. I have to go up the stairs. And I'm like, why? I don't know. I have this phobia. I can't. And I'm like, really? You're going to walk up the stairs 14 floors? And she's like, yep, I will. And so it's hard to understand other and judge other people's fears, because at the same time that she has that fear, then I have the fear of driving and maybe she doesn't, or fear of big dogs and she doesn't. So it's really hard to judge, and
Yeah.
we can't even judge ourselves. We have to be more compassionate with
Mm,
ourselves. And people ask me like, how do I know which fears to face and which ones not to face? Or are you
yeah.
suggesting we face all of our fears? And what I say is you have to be very, first of all, honest. Where do you want to go in life? Like what things do you want to accomplish? Like deep in your heart, you care about accomplishing these things. And if there are certain fears in the way, those are the ones you need to focus on. Those are the ones you need to fight. Like if you're afraid of cockroaches, well, that's okay. Unless your big dream is inside a cockroach, I don't know, place or whatever, then you should face them. But other than that, like, we shouldn't allow our fears to limit our dreams. That's the one condition. Like, that's the one thing I promised myself. I said, I'm never going to allow my fears ever again to limit my dreams. So
Mm.
that's my, the way that I see life now.
Okay, that is juicy. I love that. Because, it's like you're almost kind of like creating a fear hierarchy. Because you're like, at the top, it's like, this is what I need to get to the next level of my personal, professional, financial growth. Let's do it. But are you ever going to be asked to go in a bath of cockroaches? Probably not. So what? Make it funny. You don't like cockroaches. I don't like cockroaches. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas, it's not as important. So I love what you're saying there. It's like, you know, put it on a list and say which one is like kind of that block between me and my dream life. So I think that's so potent and so beautiful. Thank you for that reflection.
Yeah, like we have to be very, like, time is limited, right? And attention and energy. And so we have to like focus on what will get us where we want to go in everything that we do in life, right? We have to prioritize that, and then be like aligned to our values. That's it. Like that's also one interesting thing. We have to know with clarity our values, and only face, not only, but make sure that we face the fears that are in alignment to our values. So for example, one of my values is transparency. I have 4 core values: courage, transparency, authenticity, and design, because I care so much about how things look. I can't help it. So it is up there. And so if transparency is one of my values, and courage at the same time, then if there's something really uncomfortable that somebody's doing, like if someone's saying something or doing something that is uncomfortable for me, it is in alignment with my values to speak up. If I don't speak up, I am going against my core values, and that will hurt me, and it will stay with me. And it's like betraying yourself. So that is a moment where courage like needs to be present whenever something is against your core values.
This is a big one, Michelle. This is so, so, so big. Because I would speak a lot on my audience, particularly, and a common limiting belief is, they want to do the job that they dream of or something they really dream of. And people give so many friggin' opinions. And then they freeze up and they're like, well, I'm not going to move forward with my dream life because Aunt Betty said that that's a stupid career. So I love that transparency is so high on your list, and it is on mine too. I just call mine honesty. So what would you say to people who are really scared of sharing their voice? Like this is new for them to speak up with honesty, transparency, and truth.
Well, I think that, I mean, we only have one life and we're here to grow, and if we're not doing the things that take courage, but that our soul is asking us to do, like we have to listen to our body first. And if there's something you feel you need to say, and this is really important, I don't want to encourage you to go out and say it. I want you to learn how to say it in the right way, because communicating is so important, right? And I have people approach me and say, Michelle, I was so brave. I thought about you the other day. I spoke up. There was something that, let's say, my mother-in-law was doing or my sister-in-law, and I was like, I have to be brave like Michelle, so I'm going to speak up. And so she's like, I did it. I told her what was bothering me. And then I'm like, there's a huge other layer to this. Yes, I'm so proud of you for saying it out loud and like standing up for yourself, but also how we say things, how we communicate things is also so important to get to where we want to go. Like, for example, what's the one thing you want to get out of that conversation, right? There are better ways and worse ways to say it, because you can just be really mad and say something and then you can hurt a relationship that you care about. But if you have the courage, which is the first step, to say something that you care about, then the next step is to really find the best way to say it. And for example, in my case, I took I think I told you about this, but I took a class on how to be more assertive, right? But there are so many articles about this. Even ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT, how do I tell my mother-in-law this is bothering me? I bet there's an answer in there for that. But it's like, because that's another layer, like not only saying things but saying it correctly, so you actually get the result that you want. Not only get it out of your chest, but definitely getting things out of your chest feels amazing. I have to tell you, confrontation is my biggest fear. Like whenever something happens that I'm like, oh my God, I need to speak up, you have no idea like how horrible for me that is. Like it is my worst fear. There are some people that don't have any problem, like Adam, my husband. He's perfectly fine being very assertive and confronting whoever, because he's so confident in himself and his values, mostly in the way that he articulates, his thoughts. And he trusts so much in himself in that way that he doesn't see it as a problem. If he has to give feedback to somebody, if he has to ask for something like even respect or whatever it is, he would do it without hesitation. But for me, it's terrifying. So that's why I've been learning about it so much.
See, and this is what's so powerful about you, Michelle, is when you feel something that's not working in your life, you go and seek strategies and solutions. You're like, let's look at this, which I think is such a mark of a really special human. So, rather than starting the spiral of like shame, shutting down, hiding, don't want to be seen, you're over here like, hey, I'm not assertive. Let's do something about this. And you go and you find the resources to kind of break through that growth edge and arrive on the other side. So yeah, that makes you such an excellent leader, and just huge celebration to you for the way you approach your fears.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of sad that I switched my entire Instagram account to Spanish, like the Michelle Poller, because I am sharing all these stories there. I am being so open. Every time I have one of these difficult conversations, I share a post about it. I did a whole live on Instagram live on how to approach difficult conversations and all of that. So I'm sad that you have to learn. But there's a translation actually in there.
Okay.
You can figure it out, because just recently, if you want to talk a little bit more about this, the confrontation and that fear that is like it's such a big fear for a lot of people, like having to speak up, right? Speaking up your truth. And the other day I had this problem, like it was in 1 week, about 5 different people, including like influencers, podcasters, authors, were using one of my quotes as their own. And that really sucks. Like when that happens, it feels horrible, because like, wow, I came to that realization through my journey. A lot of people know me because of that specific line or tool. It's what I associate with my brand. And then suddenly another speaker, or somebody else, an author, somebody with millions of followers, is putting it on a reel. Like if she said it, when I know she took all my courses, when I know she has my book, she's been to my talk, like if she would have never been part of my world, I would not assume that she got it from me. But the fact that I know for a fact we're friends, she's been to my house, it was, it felt like betrayal to see that somebody like that, imagine that, a friend of yours suddenly using one of your lines as if it's their own. It doesn't matter if they even have two followers, still it hurts. And it's a moment where you feel like you have to honor yourself, and the only way of doing that is by speaking up, right, and saying what's bothering you. So I had to do it. This is just one example. Then the biggest podcaster in Latin America interviewed me like maybe a year ago, and then they released a book, and they have my quotes in there without any quotation, like without any credit. And and it's like so frustrating, because they're like, millions of people are buying this book and now they own this, so it was thing by thing after thing. And so I was like, I need to speak up, at least. And this is important, I didn't go after every person that did this, right? I just went after the ones that I care about. So it's not about just giving yourself such a hard time that, oh my God, I now have to be so brave. It's like choosing what is, what's important to you. In my case, it was that friend that I'm like, I consider her my friend. So this really hurts. And I wrote her a long text, and I said, it took me a long time to send this message, because it is scary to say these things, and I don't feel comfortable saying it out loud. But it really bothered me when you posted this quote that it's mine. And so I would have appreciated credit, and you normally give it. So I was really confused, and I just want to be open and tell you, and then you can tell me if this is yours. And you've been saying that for longer than I've been alive, because she's way older than I am. So, and then she admitted, she's like, Michelle, I am so sorry. She sent me 8 minutes of voice note just saying how sorry she knew, and that it was her marketing agency that wrote the script. She read it out loud, and then they never credit me. And she's like, I don't want to put the what's it called, like the responsibility in them. It's my responsibility, it's my account, and it's me, it's my face, it's my voice. So I am sorry, you're so right, and how can I make it right?
So it's like, this is huge, because you have worked so hard. You want your image, your expression, you want to feel seen, and you deserve that. And then, other people in 5 seconds are like not doing the work or wanting quick credit. And that's just fundamentally not right. So bringing your voice to the table. And as you and I talked about before, a lot of us were raised to be good little boys and girls and don't say anything and just get along nice. So for someone that's not scared to speak up, maybe there was a different history in their life, but that's a big deal for you and I to come forward and just be like, this isn't easy, but it's true. So
Yeah.
Thank you for that big share. That's so vulnerable. And I think you're teaching an important lesson here, which there doesn't have to be aggression and violence and war, so to speak, when you have a disagreement in actions or beliefs. You just came to the table and said, I felt hurt. I appreciate credit. This is happening and I don't like it. And so you came with what we'll call a loving boundary to the table. So yeah, that's very inspirational to a lot of people. And you might just get some DMs from people saying, I need to do that too. And you inspired me.
Yeah, it's talking from the heart, you
Yeah.
know, and it's about the intention that you have when you're writing that. My intention, you know what it was? It was to keep a relationship that I care about. And when that's the intention, nothing can go wrong. If your intention is to hurt back, it will go wrong.
Mhm.
Like, don't expect that person to apologize because they will feel your intention. In my case, it's like, hey, I was really happy with our friendship. I want to keep it. And I told her that. I told her the only reason I am telling this to you is because if I don't, slowly and quietly, this relationship will, fade, because that's what's happening inside of me, and I don't want that to happen. I want to keep this relationship. So I have a friend that she talks about boundaries. That's her topic, and she told me this. She said, Michelle, we have assertive conversations, like difficult conversations, with the people that we want to keep in our lives,
Yeah.
not the people that we want to push away. Those are the conversations we don't even need to have.
Yeah, I know. It's so true. It's important because you're identifying a limiting belief that I used to have. And Blake actually was the one that pulled me out of it. And this belief was if there's conflict, the relationship's over. Done. Like
Okay.
we had conflict, it's over. Not like because of aggression or anything. It was just a belief. Oh, if we conflict, it doesn't work. Whereas
Mhm.
Blake's gift is let's stay in this. Let's go another round. Let me hear you more. And that's one of his life gifts. And
Mhm.
he has, and not that I've burned any bridges, but maybe some relationships have drifted away, maybe in my younger years. He has the most immaculate track record of relationships across his lifetime because he's never afraid to go another round, get more feedback, figure it out. So I think what we've come here together in this lesson is something imperative for a very peaceful life. So it's like
Mhm.
on the other side of your fear is a lot of peace.
100%. I love that you bring the word peace into the conversation, just because when I wrote that message, disregarding, like, doesn't matter what she answered, I felt peace in my heart.
Mhm.
Amazing, because when you're about to send a message like that you're so unsure, and you read 1,000 times, and you even send it to a friend and make sure that it's all right and that you're
Yeah.
not saying the wrong words, like, what we're thinking in that moment is, how will the other person receive this message? But once you hit send and you take that out of your system, you
Mm.
don't care that much about the response. You realize that the uncomfortable feeling was with yourself. It
Mhm.
was your body was letting you know that you are betraying yourself by not being honest. So once you honor yourself like that, you feel this peace in your heart, and you're like, now I don't even care what the answer is, because I already feel good with myself, and that's all I needed.
So beautiful. Thank you for that reflection. That's very, very inspiring and so relatable. So let's talk about this, Michelle. On those days that are really hard, you're really scared, and you're like I have to send the message or go driving or deal with something head on. What do you do, or how do you talk to yourself on the really hard days when it's like, okay, you've decided to do the fear, and over on this side is the growth edge? What do you do in the middle?
Well, you know what, to me, what really helps me, like, being really honest, two things with myself. The one thing that keeps me hopeful that things will go right, maybe not that day but next day, that things, that I will feel good again, is the thought of that this life is just like this, with ups and downs. I heard a TEDx of a mentor of mine, where he explains this, and he's like, it's really important that we're in a high, when we're like in that moment that it's in like a high, and we're so happy and we feel so accomplished and we feel like we're on top of the world. We have to understand that the low will come,
Mm,
and so we have to,
mm,
which makes us appreciate the highway more, because
mhm,
we're like, let's appreciate this moment. It won't last
mm,
forever, this moment, like, it's right now, right here, right now, and then the low will come. And when you're in the low, you have to remember the high will also come back, because you've experienced this in the past. Maybe what you can do is like
mhm,
try to recreate those moments in your head where you felt at a high, and think, if that Michelle, in my case, experienced that and accomplished that, this Michelle can do it too, because this Michelle has more knowledge than past Michelle, more tools, more experience. And so why not, for example? But the other, what I was going to say also that helped me, is having people around you that believe in you. That is, to me, the key. Like my team, whenever I feel like that, like I'm not sure if we're going to make it, I'm really scared, I'm frustrated, all of this. And I always share it with my team. I never keep it to myself. I'm like, I hate keeping things to myself and just, pretending that I have things figured out. I'm very like transparent and honest with everybody around me. So just today, and when we started the call, before we started recording, you're like, how are you? And I'm like, not great. This has been a really crazy week, like too much going on and all that. And so now, I'm like that with my team, with Adam. I'm always like, freaking out, whatever. And then they help me calm down by reminding me who I am, reminding me my value, which you did today. You told me your essence is already enough. And I wrote it down because I love it. Are those reminders that I think, we need people in our life that believe in ourselves, and that are there that really genuinely want the best for us, even if it's not the most comfortable for them. Because that's a huge problem when the people that are closest to us, maybe they don't want us to be that brave. Maybe they don't want us to take that many risks, because it's uncomfortable for them. And so they don't tell us the right words. But if you surround yourself with people that want to see you shine, that want to see you grow and become a better version of yourself, despite the challenges and the fears and
love
all
it.
that, that's the kind of people that we need by our side, because are the people that will not only cheer on you, but are the ones that will challenge you. And we need that in our life too.
Ooh, that was a hot moment for me. We need people who cheer and challenge. That's so good. Right? Because if they challenge you, they're like, Emily, Michelle, I know you can do better.
Yes.
And Blake always says that with me. He's like, Emily, freak the shit out of me. Because, like, you want me at such a high level, and it's so inspiring, and it can stress me out. Because I will literally look him in the eyes. I'm like, that was not your best. Right? Whereas his tendency is more to be like, you're amazing, you're amazing. I'm like, yeah, but stretch me sometimes too. Like, call me forward. So, like, and I'm still
Adam
like,
is the opposite.
yeah.
The opposite. I'm always like, I'm the best. Like, I'm always thinking like, of course that was amazing. And I just, it went amazing. And he's like, Michelle, because two people clap doesn't make it amazing, And I'm like, what? Of course it does. They loved it. Didn't you hear the feedback? And he's like, from two people. I'm like, that's enough, like I'm always like cheering on myself a lot. I'm very like compassionate with myself, with my ego. And he's so hard. He's like, he wants me to do better and be my best version. So he's always challenging me to go the mile. And it's exhausting. But then at the end of he's like, Michelle, this is what I'm here for. Like, to challenge you, to make you better. I'm not going to settle for, your current version. We're going to go for your best version every single day. And he's like, I want you to challenge me as well. So we're on that,
and I actually just pulled out a little drop of understanding, like, why you are so successful. Because the fact you can look at a room of only two people clapping and be like, that was a win, it means right? Like, most people are like, unless every set of hands is clapping, I failed. But you are like, two people were cheering, I killed it. So that's a little dropper of your success, right? Because you're like, yes.
So funny, because the other day, and I'm going to give you this, I think you're going to like this thought that I had. And is that the other day I was writing a post about how much work I've been putting on in this launch that I'm now doing, like this new class that I'm going to be teaching online. And I said, you know what, I'm giving my best because I care about my brand, I care about my name and how people associate it, with things. And I'm like, I want my name to be always associated with like a lot of value. And then I said excellence, and then in parentheses I put not perfectionism, because I realized that perfectionism is one of the enemies of my brand. because I'm like the opposite. I am not a perfectionist at all. I've never been.
Mhm.
I'm more of the better done than perfect kind of person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do strive for excellence. And I think that's really important. It's not only about
Yes.
doing things, it's about doing them right, while at the same time not aiming for perfection, because then you will never launch. And so I don't know, this is like a new realization that I had, that I'm like, I need to do a post about this, because it's really interesting. And I think it, it's a good insight for people who are perfectionists. I'm telling you, you don't need to aim for perfection, but it's okay to aim for excellence.
I love that. It's a very subtle, massive distinction,
Yeah.
right? It's so subtle, but it's like perfectionism can like bind you and freeze you. And excellence is like, did I give that everything I've got today, even if it's not 100? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Because perfectionism also involves comparison. You're like, it's good, but is it better than this other person's? And it's not about being better than anybody. It's just doing your best. That's what it is. Like feeling like you gave your best, so you can sleep and rest peacefully at night because you gave your best.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. That's some really, really profound insight there. So people can reflect on excellence versus perfection. And in matching the theme of like giving what we have got and the time we have, I want to be so respectful, knowing you're in mama mode starting in 5 minutes. So to kind of take it home, I ask this to all my guests on every podcast: what makes a person magnetic?
What makes a person magnetic? I think their relatability. And how do you get relatability? With vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, at least for me, what has worked really well, and how I attract masses, to my personal brand. And it's because they can relate to me. And the
Mm.
only reason they relate to me is because I dare to be vulnerable, openly. So a lot of people try to keep their vulnerabilities to themselves. That's like the majority of the people in the world. Like I would dare to say 99% of people. So when you see somebody
Mm-hmm.
that has the courage to open up and talk about vulnerabilities, or like weaknesses or whatever, or rejections or failures, then that is relatable, and that it's refreshing. They're like, finally
Mm.
somebody here, not filtering their life. And so
Beautiful.
I discovered that, and I discovered this in like high school. So in high school, I realized, oh, the more open I am about my life, the more people want to hang out with me. The more I filter myself, I'm living a very inauthentic life. And so I want to live an authentic life, and how good it feels to just be so transparent about who I am, that I don't need to hide anything. I don't need to hide myself. And when you don't need to hide yourself, you can be free, and then people feel
Mm.
comfortable around you, and they will also open up, because what I think is that you are a reflection of your world. And so the more vulnerable you are and open and transparent, that's the kind of world you will live in, because that's the kind of people you will attract. So just be the person you want to attract first.
Okay, that's, so insightful, because sometimes our psychology puts it in reverse. It's like, if I'm perfect, people will like me. But really, it's if I'm real, it's like a magnet. People are like, I'm real too. Let's be real together. And this is going so deep for me, even. And, I am pretty open and real about a lot of my life. Like 90% of my life is just out there. The One of my stretch points right now is like, should I stop using Instagram filters? Because it's like, I'm basically showing up being like, okay, my eyes are too tired from being up with my children to be presentable. And I mean, I haven't even gotten to the other side of this yet. Like, I'm still more comfortable on filters because I'm like, this is the time of my life I look exhausted. Like, you don't have much time for self care. And I feel more myself with like a little perk up. But then there's a part of me that's like, one day I just want to show up so real and be like, hey, what? I have dark eyes because I was up with a child that I love. Like, that's kind of beautiful. So you actually touched on a
I have
point of it.
something to say, because I've thought about that. Because yes, I do
Yeah.
talk so much about being transparent, and at the same time, I do use filters always on my stories, right? And so somebody asked me this the other day, Michelle,
Mhm.
you talk so much about transparency. Why do you keep using filters? And I thought about it. I'm like, and then I thought, you know what? One of my core values is design, and I do care about how things look, and I can't stand like things that don't look great. And if I'm looking awesome, I don't need a filter. I don't use it. But if, like you're saying, I just woke up, but I want to share this story, I don't want to hold myself back from sharing content, valuable content, just because I don't like the way I look. I'm going to use a filter. And yes, I care about how things look. It is part of my core designs, my core values, and I can't help it. So I think that if
So
it's
true.
something that aligns to your values in some way, and I
Nicely
don't
put.
think it makes me less transparent,
Yeah.
because what I am sharing, it's very transparent. Like the things I'm saying, I care more not about transparency in how things look, but in how things feel. And I'm sharing feelings here, and I
That's
think
cool
it's
distinction.
valuable. Oh my gosh, so many great nuggets in here.
Oh
I'm
my gosh,
like,
I know. I'm like, it's like you and I could just keep going all day. And I'm like, if you hadn't told me you were getting Noah, I'd be like, let's go there. What do you mean look versus feel? But thank you so much, Michelle. And that gives me a lot of food for thought too, because I'm still really into like some nice little natural filters. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work you've done in the world, for your leadership, your connection, everything. This was such a pleasure. And I can't wait for everyone listening to hear our episode together.
me too. Super excited. Thank you so much for this conversation, for having me. And I know we can go on and on and on and on and talk for hours. I know I can.
Yeah, me
So we'll
too.
keep talking on WhatsApp. Don't
So,
worry.
sounds wonderful. Bye, Michelle.
Bye, Emily. Thank you.